Well, welcome to the Middlesex Moments radio show. I'm Dr. Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College, and today my guest is Colleen Mannes, who is a graduate of this college and a teacher here in the Middletown Public Schools in the 5th grade, right?
That's right.
And the name of your school is?
Bielfield Elementary.
And how many, you're a 5th grade teacher, how many students do you have in your class?
I have 17 in my class.
Oh, that's a good number, wouldn't you say?
It's very small. It's nice. Yes.
Yeah. 17 5th graders, I'm sure, is a handful, though. At the same time.
Sure.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was hoping to have a chance to talk to Colleen is because she's gone on from Middlesex, actually went on and then kind of came back and then went on to several other degrees. So you have a bachelor's degree and you have 2 master's degrees.
Yes, I do.
And I just thought, well, maybe if you told us a little bit about the chain of events that led you from being a high school senior to getting your 2nd master's degree and how Middlesex fit into that, it would be helpful. And I'll tell you why. People ask me, what kind of students go to a community college? And I'm always kind of frozen when I'm asked that because everybody goes to a community college, so it's hard to personify, I mean, everybody's not between the ages of 18 and 24. Everybody's not on their first career. Many people here in 2nd and 3rd careers. Everybody's just not the same. It's an incredibly diverse group of people. When I get it, and I love this, the opportunity to talk to a graduate of the college and to talk about the story that you have about how you went to college and what that meant for you and the choices you made, I think it gives our listening audience, and we have a pretty good listening audience here on WLIS, WMRD, gives them just more of an insight into their community's college, which is what we are. So you were a high school senior once.
A long time ago, back in the 70s. And when I graduated, I had no desire to go to college, and a lot of my friends didn't go to college. We had many opportunities to get into the business field and work from the bottom up. And if you really weren't going into nursing or education, many of us didn't pursue the college education. So I went to work for Aetna. I started at Pratt & Whitney and stayed there for about 2 years and then moved on to Aetna. They were moving down to Middletown, which was whereabouts I had lived. And I ended up getting married and had 1 daughter, and several years later had another daughter. In the meanwhile, I did some volunteering at my oldest daughter's school, and took a layoff. They downsized a credit insurance department over at Aetna, and I decided then to pursue going back to school. Never having any college background or any experience or taking anything at all, I came over to Middlesex. I lived over on Tryon Street, which is like 1 block away, which is perfect. And I took all the entrance exams or whatever I needed and started taking classes.
What was the first class you took? Do you remember?
I believe it was I think probably it was an English class. Mm-hmm. It was an English class. I know I had to take like a Math 101, mm-hmm. and then I don't believe the 101 counted. I think it was like a prerequisite before you can get into the next math. And I really took advantage. It wasn't easy. I took advantage of everything that was offered here. I really went for a lot of support to get through the math. Spanish, I never took a language before, so I had Spanish. I had 2 semesters of that. I had biology. I remember Evelyn Moulton. I would have to go in for the labs, and I would be really confused, and she would sit, and it was just extra labs that I would take. I fell in love with history and met a nice professor here, Professor Trier.
Oh, he was here when you were here.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually ended up taking all 6, or I think he had 6 classes available at the time, Western Civ 1 and 2, U.S. History 1 and 2, maybe only 4. I can't remember what else he had offered at the time. And so I took advantage of all that.
He'll be very happy to hear that you fell in love with history.
I did. I ended up being a history major and graduated with a major in history and minor in elementary ed.
Wonderful. So. I'm afraid we have to take a break, and some sponsors have to come on and tell their story, and then we're going to come back and go right back into this story. How does that? Well, welcome back. With me today is Colleen Mannes. I meant to ask you if it's Colleen or Colleen. Okay, yeah. I have a cousin-in-law who's Colleen, so I have to change the way I'm saying it. But what do the students call you in your 5th grade class?
Mrs. Mannes.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, so I could call you Mrs. Mannes too.
That's okay.
We were talking a little bit about your first experiences in college, and how long had you been out of school between high school and starting back?
Oh, geez. I graduated when I was only 17. My birthday was in August, and I started here probably when I was 36.
Oh,
so wow. I've been out quite a while.
So to have to take a kind of refresher course in mathematics is completely understandable. I mean, it's...
My sister's a nurse, and that helped. And my brother-in-law is very, very good with math. They lived in Vermont, and still live in Vermont, and so they helped quite a bit. But in between, I had to use every resource that was here in the college.
Yeah, you'd have to kind of go back and teach yourself math all
Right.
over again.
Right.
Right. So after you had been here for a while, you decided that you wanted to be in teaching, or what were you thinking?
I believe when I was doing some parent work in my oldest daughter's school, I really liked it, and I had said I wanted to go back to school and get a few classes underway, and I decided that's when I wanted to really go back and pursue a totally different career. And so I started taking all the classes here. I worked with a great counselor. I don't know, can I say his name?
Yeah, of course.
Frank Kwan. He's now over at Wesleyan.
We give a shout out to Frank
Hi,
every time
Frank.
we can. Yeah.
Anyway, Frank was great because every semester I would go and he outlined the courses I would need. He worked with someone over at St. Joseph College up in West Hartford, and side by side we looked at the courses that I could take here at Middlesex. I wanted to take as many as I could. I had an infant at the time, so you remember I just had my daughter Andrea, and my husband Craig was watching her. He worked at Pratt & Whitney's second shift, so I needed to take all day classes, and so I needed to be home, and luckily this college here is about a mile from Tryon Street where we had lived, and it worked out great. So Frank would coincide or work with the person up in West Hartford, tell me what I needed. We took about 48 credits here, and then I started taking education classes up at St. Joseph. Again, my major was history, so you needed, I think it was 12 classes in a major. So whatever I was able to take here, I did, and then went and took the other up at St. Joe's. We were then able to transfer those classes back down to Middlesex. I don't remember how many credits you needed to
Probably
complete.
60 to 64 roughly, yeah.
So I do know I had enough here. They transferred back and forth classes because I wanted an associate's degree because I could actually sub at the time with an associate's degree. So I did get the degree from here, and all my classes were kept transferring back and forth, and I ended up graduating in 2000 from St. Joseph. So say I started in 1993. It took me about 7 years to get it.
That's really not bad. And
Part-time.
And as a history major, then you also got certified to teach. So is that like a different set of, set of courses,
I
right?
majored in history, so you had to take all the required
Right.
history, and then I believe it was like 12 classes you needed to take. So I'm basically 3 classes short of actually teaching grades 4 to 8 in history. I'd have to take additional classes and take a couple of additional education classes, but I'm certified to teach grades K to 6. So my minor was elementary, and you have to take, again, I want to say another 12 classes in elementary ed to be able to get a degree in that.
When you went to St. Joseph's for the first class, did you feel that you were prepared to succeed there based on
did.
your experience here?
What I liked about St. Joseph College were that the classes were small, and at the time here, the classes were small too. I want to say maybe the most we had in the class was 25. I tried to take as many day classes as I could, and at nighttime, I don't really think that there were even more than 20 at night at the time when I was taking the classes, which made it really good. I got to know the professors really well, and they were able to connect me with tutors if I needed them, and I definitely needed them in science and math. I really struggled with both. Now I love math, and I love science. Actually, my master's degree, one of them is in natural science. So
Really?
after I left St. Joseph in 2000, I immediately went into a program. I graduated in May, went into a program with 2 other teachers in September, and we graduated at Central with a degree in science, and then we transferred down to, it's called the Graduate Institute, which used to be part of Southern, and 4 other teachers. It definitely makes it easier when you can go to school with other people that you know, especially. And we stayed in a program for 18 months, and we have another degree in what's called oral traditions, which is reading and storytelling.
Oh, I want to know more
So,
about that.
it's fun.
So, yeah, how do you use that in your school teaching?
I really think that history is a story.
Oh, of
and
course,
I think if you take a class with Dr. Trier, you'll know he just makes history fun because it's a story. And I think that kind of hooked into my way of thinking, and hopefully when if the kids hear this at school, from school that I teach, I try to always tell stories, and it makes learning fun.
So now you've been teaching for
About 14 years.
14 years, and so that means you've got 5th graders who are now in college.
I do.
Right. Do you run into them?
I do.
And what's it like to
I feel
see?
really old.
Yeah.
I do. I feel really old. It's fun. It's really neat to have them come back and tell you what they're doing. Some have kids, and it's really something.
Yeah, yeah. So is that what you find most, what do you find satisfying about teaching for people who are thinking about being a teacher? Because there is
There's a lot. I would say what I enjoy most is having someone that had difficulty maybe reading in the beginning of the year, and then, I don't know, even say 2 months later that they take a book out and they're reading on their own without you pushing them into that book, or they'll say, can you sit with me and read with me, and they will read to me, and they're much more fluent than when they started in the fall. And we do book buddies. We have younger kids that we read with, and it's just a really, really neat feeling to see the kids' enthusiasm with books and reading.
Do you think it made you a different kind of parent, having taken courses in being educators, or being an educator?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I think my younger daughter always saw me with a book in my hand. She actually is studying to be a special ed teacher. She's now over at St. Joseph College as well. And she is very driven and very organized and very much knows what she wants to do. And she'll always say that she has said many times that a lot has to do with how she has seen me when she was growing up. So, interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the, I think all of us who've been parents have had that first trip to the pediatrician's office. I remember it well. And there was a sign on the wall that said, essentially, children aren't going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what they see you do. And I thought, that really, I totally believe that.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember that. And you're in this wonderful position to be able to be a model for children from the community. They're not your own children, but you get to be a parent in a different kind of a way.
You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, teachers are important, right? You said maybe it was over the break that you try to do something special every month. What are you doing this month?
Well, we just finished our Martin Luther King project. We've got our Black History Month in February. So all our students will be doing individual projects. They'll choose their own person that they want to research. And we've got about a month, and we incorporate that into our reading program and social studies program. So we're able to work a little bit longer throughout the day with both of those subjects, so that the children can really get a good understanding of the person that they're researching, from going into the computer lab to researching in the library to actually pulling together what they need to actually give an oral presentation.
They give an oral presentation?
They do, and they can dress up in costumes if they want, and they've got a whole rubric they follow, and they're all warmed up now. We've done our Native American unit, we've done our Martin Luther King project, and now they're ready for this.
What kinds of things did they do last year? Do you remember?
Oh, we've got Clara Barton. She was a teacher, so they've come up with, looking old-fashioned in long dresses and in little round glasses to, Frederick Douglass was another one that stands out. Someone had a big bow tie and a big hat. I can't remember who else offhand, but it's just a lot of fun to see what they can come up with when they do decide to present in costume.
Are they a good audience for their peers? When
They are.
Because it takes some courage to get up. Yeah,
it does. And a lot of times, we've got only a certain amount of books in the Russell Library, and the Cromwell Belden Library only have so many books too. So a lot of these kids, there's maybe 3 people doing a research on the same person, and they all sit there and not saying anything. If someone has forgotten to say something, they maybe did a little more research and they found something else out, and it's it's a very respectable audience, and they've grown. I mean, they're 5th grade going into 6th grade now, so they've really learned a lot, and they've learned to respect each other. That's great.
I'm getting the signal from the person who records this radio show that we have to take a break. We have to be sure that WMRD WLIS gets to play the radio station commercials that they usually schedule for the show. So we'll go away, and we'll come back, and, well, welcome back. We've got just a few minutes left, really, and I wanted to ask you about your impressions of what kind of teach influence there is with a young person. I mean, because your students are 10 years old, right?
Sure.
So every day you stand in front of them and you influence them and you impress things upon them. So what do you think would be the kind of impression you'd want to leave with your students? What kinds of people do you want them to grow up to be?
We just had a meeting today. We have a responsive classroom. We have morning meetings, and the kids greet each other every morning, and we share book talks, and we talk about problems or happy events or what's happened with the kids from the night before or the day before. And one of the things that I brought up was the fact that it was important to be kind to one another. And I'd like them to leave trying to remember what we had with that type of conversation about how it's important to always be kind and considerate to one another, and that not everyone thinks the same as everyone else or looks the same or acts the same, and that it's okay, that it's all right to be different, and that if they can come out being kind, and we talked about how later in life, when you go to other schools or you go to college or you go and get a job, you're going to meet people that you may not care for very much, but that you're going to be working side by side with them, and that you have to be kind, and that it is a big family, what we're in this classroom right now. Just like when you go to an office and you're there 9 to 5, it's your extended family. It's not your family that you're going to go home to, but that you are around them a lot. And so you sometimes see some things that you may not like or you do like, but you still have to find the best in people, and you have to be kind. So hopefully they will leave. I don't know if they would even remember next week this conversation that I had with them today, but I think some of them will, and hopefully they'll come back and they'll remember that maybe someday down the road, and understand that it's important to be kind. Maybe somebody be kinder to them than they were to the other person, and maybe learn from that. I don't know.
When did you start having a responsive classroom activity?
Our school started, probably 3 or 4 years ago, in a proactive response to behavior. And it's a program that a couple of our teachers, Alicia Carta is another 5th grade colleague of mine, and she went through training and she introduced some things that she had learned, and then later myself, her, and another teacher went to another additional training. And basically it's just helping the kids understand, be positive, positive feedback, let them know when they do something wrong. Sometimes kids don't realize that they're playing on playground equipment wrong, and then you tell them, and then you show them the right way, and then you watch them, and if they do it wrong again, then you tell them it needs to be which way should it be. And it's just a positive way to a positive approach to different classroom learning.
So it's like a methodology,
Yes.
a way to teach. So it isn't a Monday morning for 15 minutes
No.
you sit in a circle kind of thing.
Oh no, it's every day.
Every
and
day.
you build on instances or occurrences, and it seems to work.
It's wonderful. It makes me feel really good about the idea of what can happen in a classroom, because it's more than just learning the mathematics and learning to read. Or learning the stories of history. I mean, there's an emotional intelligence that you want your students to develop.
Right. Well, molding our youth. I mean, they're
Right.
young, and you've got to expose them. They're being exposed right now to a lot, from TV and video games to different stories that they hear and on the playground and all that. And you just want to reinforce positive behavior.
Let me ask you a question about learning styles. So now, because of course I've only been dealing with college students for a long time, but you've got, as you were saying, they're youth, they're very young. Do you see different learning styles among your students, or do you think that's kind of a myth, that some people are tactile learners and some people are passive?
Oh no, there's all different kinds of learners,
Yeah.
for sure.
And you see that already in
Yes,
10-year-olds?
absolutely. You can see them in kindergarten.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely.
So how do you adapt then in a classroom? You have 17 students.
Well, you can, a child will not understand something, and then you present it a different way, and they maybe will not understand it again, and then you maybe show them a different way. Maybe you show them something more visual, and they get it. Maybe they give you the feedback when they don't understand something or they're confused with something, and as a teacher, you've got to adapt, and you've got to find a way that you can reach them. And we've just been exposed to a lot. I think this group here, we're really big with cooperative learning, and we've got the kids in groups, and they need to get along. And so this is really interesting, because you can tell that maybe they were set in rows before, or they sometimes don't care to sit next to certain people, and they have to learn to adjust. And they've got little roles, and I just started something a couple of months ago where they have little signs that one's a materials passer maybe, and one is a leader in the group, and one is the speaker, and one is, there's like 4 or 5 different roles, and every few days they switch their little, and we don't do it all day long, but maybe during math is a big thing, whereas, you've got someone that can monitor, and so they're holding themselves accountable in their groups a little bit more, and it gives me time to go around and work with all the kids, not just the 2 or the 3. They're all working together to get an end result, and it's neat.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. Well, it helps
And a lot
that
of work.
you've had 14 years of experience, pretty much with this age group, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you what's great about a 10-year-old?
They're still young, and they're still innocent, and then they still want to learn. And they can learn.
And they can. That's right. Yeah.
And they're smart.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
They're really smart.
Yeah. Which is why I think you got to really be thoughtful about what what you model, what you talk about, how you expose them, how you create in them a kind of a curiosity about things that are new and different,
Right.
without judgmental stuff going on, and and I'm sure some of this, your responsive classroom idea is really refreshing to think about, but it must be to some extent a response to the concern about bullying that people talk about so much in schools, and I think
it's in general just the behaviors of the kids. We want to, we want everyone to get along,
Right.
and I want everyone to help each other and work with each other. And with responsive classroom, it's just a different approach to having the kids see a positive way in which to get something done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we talk about bullying, I'm not so sure if there's a problem, they'll talk about it. And I mean, we have a complaint box, we have a compliment box.
Oh, you do?
We do. So that's all part of. I don't necessarily think it gets into the higher scale things, because the kids kind of take care of it much earlier. If they put a complaint in, if they're not happy about something, they always have to put a compliment in, so that they, so I'll always have one of each. And we have been sharing more and more of that. And some of the stuff is silly. They just want to be. They just want to be heard. Some are very legitimate, and we talk about it, and there's no names mentioned, but they pretty much know. They're around each other all day long, so
Sure.
They know if there's a problem, and they know what can they do to solve it, and just kind of validates it a little bit when you can present it in a little bit differently to the group of kids.
Absolutely. I'm wondering how many people in the listening audience have been in a fifth grade classroom recently. I mean, I haven't, so I'll just say right off the bat, I'm complete admiration of you to be able to spend the day. It's such important work with so much energy, because they must have tremendous energy.
They do, but it's every grade. It's not just fifth
Is
grade.
it? Yeah.
It's every grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very demanding job, and it's fun. And it's just not a 9 or an 8 to 4 job. It's not. And we're all of us are involved in committees, and we've got meetings tonight at 6:30.
You do?
We do, and we're all part of PTA, and we all try to represent the school and help out if we can. And it's
Sure.
it just doesn't end at the end of the school day for the kids. It continues.
So it's a vocation.
It is.
Yeah, right.
I think it is, just like you. You
Yeah.
know that.
Yes, exactly. You never stop thinking about it, do you?
No.
Yeah. Well, so would you have some advice? You were an adult learner. That's the way we would classify you.
Okay.
And I don't know how responsive our school was when you came back to school, but would you have some advice for an adult learner who might be thinking about going to, starting college or
Sure.
restarting college?
I would say do it. And
Yeah.
go back to school. Look out there. If you're unable to pay for it, look out there for grants. Look out there. There's got to be some way in which you can, there's monies out there. Go to the school and find out how you can go about doing it. Start with one class. Meet with a counselor. You'll find someone like Frank Juan, I'm sure, and find out what you want to do and make your dream come true. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's not easy, but it's a job. You're going to college, I always tell my daughter who's now in school, it's a job, and you need to do your best at your job. I tell the kids, my fifth graders, you're at school and it's a job, and you're expected to work hard, just like you would be working a 9 to 5 job. You need to work hard.
It's exactly what I told my daughter, too.
So I would encourage everybody, if they have a dream, to do it, to pursue it. And there'll be people to help them.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to thank Mrs. Mannes for being here with me this afternoon to talk about her experience at Middlesex Community College, and also to give us a window into what it's like to be a teacher in the fifth grade here in Middletown. And I want to say, it's reaching hands across the table here that your fifth graders are going to be our first year students, will be our returning students 20, 30 years from now. So we're in this together. So thanks so much for the hard work that you do
You're
every
welcome.
day. Yeah. Well, this has been the Middlesex Moments radio show. And I hope that in addition to being inspired to think about going back to college, if you've been out for a while, you'll also just be interested in what opportunities there are at the college, and you can find out all about us at MxCC.edu. There's credit and non-credit work, there are activities, there are performances, there's everything under the sun, and we have a great library on top of all that. I'm Anna Wasesha, proud to be the president of Middlesex Community College, and wishing you all a good day.